And the next gentleman I'm going to ask to speak is Matti Saarelainen. He's from Finnish intelligence service, head of the analyze department. Matti, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, now, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this very interesting and important conference. After 16 years in 2030, many people will say that our security environment is very different from what it was today. They will have a good reason to repeat the cliché that we live in a rapidly changing world. And they will be right. Hopefully, though, at least as many will also grumble that some things never change, because they, too, are right. Recent events in Ukraine have shown that traditional military security in Europe is still relevant and shouldn't be ignored. At the same time, it is just as obvious that some things have changed. We see little green men crossing unmarked front lines, cyber attacks launched by civilian hackers, and lawfare raging between politicians, diplomats, and spin doctors. Are we witnessing an anti-terrorist operation, defense against oppression, armed rebellion, civil war, aggressive intrusion, invasion, or war? Or all of them? During the next 16 years, we will witness totally new developments that take us by surprise. But as always before, most developments will emerge from something we already know. They contain familiar elements or reflect things that have all the time been before our eyes. Even the most remote processes beyond our field of vision will send weak signals. For most people, these signals go unnoticed, but some keen eyes and ears will detect them and send an early warning to those who need to be warned. Later, many will try to take credit for being the first to have detected something which others failed to see until it hit them in the face. What should we have seen and should have seen 16 years ago? It was 1998. Cyberspace was still waiting for serious invaders. Color revolutions were part of the world of art instead of politics. 9/11 would have sounded like the name of new perfume, and Facebook would probably have been associated with police archives or search warrants. In Finland, stricter gun laws, because the school shootings, would have been associated with the United States, and they would have seemed absolutely unnecessary. Sorry, this is another. Okay, I leave this because this was for the afternoon presentation. Don't worry about that. But okay, compared with the past, Finland's security is much more clearly linked to the environment shaped by globalization. Distant things have come closer, and bad habits travel fast. The global nature of economic, technical, and social systems, as well as their interdependence, makes it more difficult to define threats affecting any one particular area. In a complex society, it is difficult to identify cause and effect relationships. Flows from outside have a stronger impact than the strategies. The word security is being linked to the larger number of phenomena than before. Cyber or information security is the most recent and most discussed domain. In the long continuum of security, it provides a particular example of our changing environment. It has opened new views and created new threats because of its geographic independency, technological qualities, and new actors. Cyber is in fact true globalization. Globalization is not only a state of affairs or a development, it is a force that changes the actors themselves, their internal structures plus their mutual relationships. In practice, the simultaneous change in threats and their growing diversification has led to the situation in which traditional ways of understanding security or insecurity, let alone responding to threats, are no longer adequate. Reaction to the threats requires national cooperation on a horizontal level and increasingly deeper international cooperation. Due to increasing global interdependence, external and internal securities of states are becoming more intertwined. The role of transnational threats, such as terrorism and cyber attacks, is growing, and states will have to conduct their preparation and preventing measures more and more with the help of international cooperation and regardless of geographic location. As national and international interdependency increase, it is necessary to assess and develop security more comprehensively than in the past. It should be done from an intersectoral perspective, taking into account all actors in society. As regards the field of European security actors, the question is, how will international and national security actors and organizations, on the one hand, come closer to one another, and on the other hand, compete with each other, creating a security culture as a result of which security becomes a kind of social power that penetrates the different sectors of the society. In the future, security threats are going to be linked even more to a common international threat, both ideologically and operationally, and the spillover effects may be difficult to predict due to interaction between information networks and systems. These transnational threats are also becoming increasingly multidimensional and interrelated. Threats or crises concerning our countries may develop into global ones, and on the other hand, global crises, especially those taking place within the EU, may have very rapid effects on the security situation in the member states. Also, in addition to direct or indirect consequences, terrorism that occurs abroad may have effects on the world economy and thus to the well-being of society. The international community faces great challenges concerning changes in the environment, food production, and the fair distribution of economic resources, as well as social and humanitarian issues, such as human rights and poverty. In addition, it seems that the nature of these crises keeps on becoming more complex. Population growth will lead to increasingly worrying problems in terms of environment, climate, poverty, hunger, and human rights. This will weaken states' ability to maintain order and create opportunities to criminal activities. Entities that are poorly equipped to handle security threats will have to rely increasingly more on other actors' capabilities to combat international threats. Handling security threats efficiently and adaptation to the new global security environment create challenges not only for individual national authorities, but also in terms of the cooperation between them. In other words, the interdependence of national security authorities will increase. Security providing entities have had to adapt new approaches, which are not based on completely eliminating all security threats, but on reducing, controlling, and foreseeing them. The role of security policy and its ability to affect the society and political objectives has become even more important. To states and individuals, security is everything. Security is freedom from threats. On the other hand, it means the ability and freedom to function. Ultimately, it all boils down to the very existence of the state and the individual. One of the fundamental tasks of the state leadership is to guarantee the security of society. States and international institutions will remain as strong actors, but non-governmental actors will challenge them. Dysfunctional states and national or transnational extremist movements may threaten social peace, economic development, and the stability of the international system, and their activities might spread across state borders. It looks as if the responsibilities in generating security will become even more decentralized than before. And in addition to actual security authorities, the third sector, including civic organizations and private security enterprises, are getting more and more involved in providing security. Discussion on security, intelligence, and the rights of the state and its citizens is both comprehensive and intense. But there are controversial features in the debate. Either there is not enough of security or there is too much of it. The competencies of security authorities should be increased or they should be cut. Discussion about security and threats tends to easily lead to a feeling of insecurity, thus creating demands for more security. In reality, it is neither impossible nor permissible to oppose security. Security is relative. The overlapping of internal and external threats requires a new and more holistic approach and set of tools for addressing them. Knowledge and its management have become central success factors for organizations. In a postmodern information society, the ability to process and analyze information is essential in terms of work-related changes. It is not enough that the decision maker knows what must be done. It is also necessary to know how to use the information in order to gain results. So in broad terms, it comes down to the ability to manage knowledge. In an information society, knowledge management is not a separate part of the leadership or a time-specific trend, but an essential part of the change in management, in which entities have to be managed in new ways. In the increasingly fast-paced and network operating environment, development of situational awareness requires more organized sharing of information within different administrative sectors and the entire state administration, as well as on the EU level and between different interest groups. Line management is not the best way to manage information. Instead, one should emphasize network management. It is precisely networks that allow information to flow in many different ways, whereas in hierarchical line management, information flow is, at worst, a strictly controlled bureaucratic communication operation. One thing that will never change is the need for information. Even Gordon Gekko in the film Wall Street said, "The most valuable commodity I know of is information." What he meant was accurate, timely, reliable, and above all, analyzed information needed for decision making. In one word, intelligence. Clients in important places from ancient Rome to the modern global community are greedy for reliable intelligence. Security should be seen as a process. For the government and social politics, this would entail the following question: to which direction do we want to direct the process? And what kind of goals should we set for the process, even though perfect security is unachievable? In addition, due to increasing amount of security bureaucracy and overlaps, the focus should be in managing security issues on a political level. The government knowledge utilization process is still very immature. We still believe that decision makers will read all the papers, even though that is usually not the case. Knowledge on paper doesn't transfer to the policymakers. It is necessary to establish seamless dialogue, shared knowledge talks, and forums between key actors to avoid the broken phone phenomenon. Government should have a strategic intelligence capability, which would contain a comprehensive map of risk environment, visionary elements and tools for making policy recommendations, and action plans basing on focal issues in the overview. Such strategic intelligence capability requires good intelligence, strategic foresight, visionary management, and enlightened and committed policy makers. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. We, just for a second, we constantly talk about the need for cooperation, coordination, you name it. You use the intersectoral activities. Could you give us one example how to do it? I mean, we constantly talk about it, but how to do, how to cooperate really, how to make the different organizations to cooperate?
It has been very difficult because the government, the ministers are very, very strict when they are doing things only from the scratch. Every minister is doing everything from the scratch. And that's why I think that we have some good start points now in Finland when we talk about forecasting. We have this kind of plan to put the very huge network to make a forecasting process going on for the government. I think this will be the good example if we can also add some strategic intelligence inside this process.
You mentioned at the end of your speech visionary management. How do you measure that? Or where do you get that from?
No, I think that visionary management really recognize this network, the value of networks and network management, so that it allows people to be to form almost voluntarily these networks without any strict rules on that.
Okay. Kas meil on saalist küsimusi? If not, then thank you once again.
Thanks.